Don't you think they could be subject to blackmail? And that's why, for example, if you're in the military and you send naked pictures of yourself to people, you'd probably be fired. If you're in the workforce, in the corporate world, you'd probably be fired. If I did it,
well,
I'd be fired.
He could get fired by his constituents. The voters could fire him. Absolutely.
I think one of the things that's happening here that's different between any of the others is that the internet has changed this thing. This isn't just happening on cable news. Cable is not showing most of the pictures and most of the really, bad ones. I mean, the really bad ones. But everybody can go on the net and look at them, and I think a lot of people are. And I think that's the problem. This thing's it's now being thrown around by peer to peer in a way that's never happened before, not in one of these kinds of things. And I think that's really keeping this going, and a lot of Democrats want it to stop. Yeah.
Michael, when you see what he's done here and this impulsive lack of control that he has, very bizarre behavior, does it not trouble you that he's, hearing our nation's secrets at all?
Well, no, Sean, I've mentioned it. No one's debating whether it was a bad thing.
I'm asking, does it worry you in terms of his ability to do his job?
No, I don't think so, Sean. I don't think there's a correlation with his personal bad acts and whether he can still be a leader. Well, clearly, if you listen to the polls, a lot of his constituents want him to stay, and then they'll make a decision next November if he should stay.
Guys, good to see you. And coming up, another bizarre week of twists and turns in the Casey Anthony trial. Judge Janine Pirro and Geraldo Rivera are here. We'll get the legal lowdown. But first, how is the president planning to celebrate Father's Day this weekend? I'm going to tell you what he's doing for the shocking 73rd time. West and Wewaxation for the president. Straight ahead. So while the nation struggles with massive unemployment, staggering deficits, and multiple wars, President Obama, well, he's busy working on his handicap. Now, this weekend in the Buckeye State, the president is scheduled to hit the links with Vice President Joe Biden and two Ohio Republicans, Speaker of the House John Boehner and Governor John Kasich. It will be the 12th weekend in a row that our golfer-in-chief has played the game, his 14th outing this year, and the 73rd of his presidency. Just don't expect any serious budget talks to go down on the golf course. The White House has already clarified that this is strictly a social outing, not the time for negotiations. But maybe Speaker Boehner should at least confront the president about this attack ad from the DCCC, which aired in Ohio this spring. Let's take a look.
You missed the spot.
Did someone call the fire department? Because it's about to get hot in here.
The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And joining me now is one of the men who's going to be teeing it up with the president this Father's Day weekend, Ohio Governor John Kasich. I understand you're a pretty good golfer, Governor. Is that true?
Well, Sean, I don't have as much time to play anymore. As you know, you get busy in this job, and you should be. But Sean, it's really there's so much polarization in Washington. I've got to tell you, I did the budget. I was the chief architect with a great team of people in '97 to get our budget balanced. And I have to tell you that the ability to treat somebody as a human being and not as a political opponent, although you're always going to be philosophically different, it just creates a different dynamic. And as you know, this country needs a solution on this debt limit. And to just be there and be part of this. And there's a few things that, I might be able to talk to the president and vice president about as well. Some of these personal relationships are good to develop. And you remember Reagan and O'Neill. I mean, Tip O'Neill and Reagan fought like cats and dogs. But at the end of the day, they put the country first.
All right, but here's the problem. It was the president, to pass his health care bill. He cut $500 billion in Medicare, $500 billion. Republicans didn't do that. You see the ad there where old people are having to work and push lawnmowers. How are they going to pay for the $12,000? That's first of all, no old people are included in the Ryan plan, so it's deceiving. The president himself said that the Republican plan is going to have children with autism, Down syndrome, and the elderly fending for themselves. So he's demagoguing it, and you're going to sit with him. How do I'd have a very hard time saying, why do you support these lies? Because it's just a lie. It's not true.
Well, Sean, you know, I've been with the president. I had one exchange with him in the Blair House when I was first elected governor. The president came in and campaigned against me 12 times. And, you know, I mean, if you're going to be didn't work. So regardless of the golf outcome, you know, I won the election. But, Sean, part of this is when you don't know who the opponent is and you don't know what they're made of, it's a lot easier to attack somebody than when you have to look at them and get to know them a little bit and treat them as a human being. And, you know, that was my experience in Washington.
Wait a minute.
As I got to know people. Go ahead.
Paul Ryan sat there in front of President Obama, and they had a relationship. And he just went out there in front of Paul Ryan, tried to humiliate him, embarrass him, and misrepresent his plan.
You know what I do? Well, what I've done, Sean, is I call people on it. Look, out here in Ohio, we are about to eliminate an $8 billion budget deficit. We're cutting taxes. We've stared our problems square in the eye, and we are getting Ohio on the right track. We're open for business now. And believe me, I am going to communicate to everyone who will listen that we did not look for a bailout. We did not look for somebody else to solve our problems. We are a couple weeks away from having a final agreement on a conference committee that will set our house in order. And you know why? Because we had the courage to look problems in the eye. We didn't play short-term politics. We are thinking about Ohio's future. Yeah. And you're going to hear a lot of this out of me, Sean. And you know, maybe that's one of the things that I will be able to communicate. But, you know, we've been invited for a social event. I'll handle it appropriately. But nobody will ever really know what gets discussed during those 18 holes of golf. But I think it will be beneficial for the country. At least I hope so, Sean.
Are you going to come on the program and tell us what goes on during those 18 holes of golf?
Oh, you know I will, Sean. You know I'll come and tell everybody.
Like, will you do me a favor? Because I can't get the president. He doesn't have the courage to come on Hannity. He goes and gets these softball interviews wherever he goes. Will you work on my behalf? I endorsed you for governor. I supported your run. I think maybe you could say, why don't you go on my buddy Hannity's program?
Okay, and what pitch do you think I should make as to why he should appear?
Because I think people would like to see him and I debate. That's why. What do you think?
Sean, you know what I'm going to tell him? I'm going to tell him, you know, Hannity, he may have strong opinions. He's a heck of a good guy. He's a good father and a good husband.
And
give Hannity some time. Come on, Mr. President.
They wouldn't even give me a... Look, they even invited O'Reilly to the Christmas party. I didn't get a Christmas party invite. The White House Christmas party. When I went to the Bush Christmas party, there were all sorts of liberals there.
Let me tell you something. One thing that I guess I want to emphasize again is what we're doing here. We've built a team of people committed to solving problems and taking on all the issues. I'll give you an example on Medicaid. We're saving billions of dollars, and you know why? We focused on 6% that drives over 50% of the costs, and we're giving them care coordination so they get better care at a lower price. Everybody wins. If you start looking problems square in the eye and cut out the politics, put the country first, our state first, it's amazing what you can do. I did it in '97 with my friends, and we're about to do it with some great partners here in Ohio.
I got to tell you,
and I'm going to keep talking about it.
I think the president and vice president, they have it out for you because Ohio is a must-win state for both parties. So I'm not sure if he's really going to be your friend.
I'm going to stand behind them on the tee.
Okay, not a bad idea. What's your handicap?
It's not as good as it used to be, Sean. There's some things that ought to remain private.
Well, what did it used to be?
It used to be single digit.
All right, that's better than mine because I don't ever play. But anyway, John Kasich, Governor, good to see you. And coming up,
thank you.
The prosecution is getting ready to wrap up its case against Casey Anthony. Is there enough evidence for conviction? And should she get the death penalty? Geraldo Rivera says no. We'll check in with him and Judge Jeanine Pirro as they join us live from Orlando tonight. Straight ahead. And the twists keep coming in the Casey Anthony trial in Florida. She is charged with killing her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, back in 2008. The prosecution is expected to wrap up their case possibly as early as Wednesday. At the end of last week, graphic images were shown in the courtroom of Kaylee Anthony's remains, prompting Casey to break down in tears. Joining me now live from Florida with the very latest, the host of Justice with Judge Jeanine, right here on the Fox News Channel, Judge Jeanine Pirro. And she has tried many child abuse homicide cases. And also, you can see him right there, the host of Geraldo at Large, Geraldo Rivera. Guys, good to see him. And you got,
hey, John.
And you also have Greta down there as well.
Greta's here too. We should drag her out.
It's like a warning to Orlando. Be on watch for these 3 Fox people.
That's right.
All right, you know,
Judge, lawyers, real trouble.
Judge, I look at this, and to me, how many more stories can this girl tell? You know, before the jury's going to say that she has 0 credibility.
The jury already knows she has no credibility. Even her lawyer admits she's got no credibility. But here's the bottom line. She had motive, means, and opportunity. The evidence that the prosecution has presented has been solid. None of it is reversible error, although my friend here disagrees. And at the end of the day, you take your common sense and you apply it to this case. You've got a child who is missing, a mom who's bumping and grinding and dancing, who can't wait to get a tattoo that says Bella Vita, like life is beautiful now that my baby's gone, and you know, the smell of a dead body in the trunk of her car. I mean, I've never tried a child abuse homicide, Sean, where there was a videotape, an eyewitness, or the child came back to testify. So what you've got to do is put the circumstantial evidence together. It's all there, and they will convict her.
You know, Geraldo, this is the thing that...
Convict her, they may.
But Geraldo, the bumping, grinding, and dancing happened when she supposedly was looking for her daughter. And, you know, to quote Janine here, I mean,
the question, though, Sean, is very specific under the law. I'm sure that the judge has never, ever asked the perpetrator of a child abuse homicide to be put to death. That doesn't happen in this country. It has never happened in the state of Florida. They've only executed 2 women since 1929. One of them was a serial killer. 3 to 5 American children are killed tragically by their parents every day. They don't go to death row.
Wait a minute. I may disagree. We'll get to that question in a second. The smell in the car, all the other physical evidence, the babies down the street from their home, the shifting, changing stories, one after another. Now the kid drowned in the pool and my father abused me is her claim. Come on, Geraldo, you're looking at the evidence. Don't you think it's fairly incontrovertible and overwhelming?
Yes, I do. I agree with you, Sean. She will probably be convicted. My whole argument in this case is that this woman never should have been subjected to the death penalty for this crime, as hideous as it is. The statute is very specific. It's got to be aggravated child abuse. It's got to be atrocious, heinous, and cruel. There's no evidence here of aggravated child abuse. The only reason they're going for the death penalty here, this is an elected Democrat DA fighting against the Republican.
I was an elected DA. You know what? The death penalty and seeking it is one of the most awesome responsibilities that a DA has. And at the end of the day, this case is one of the most outrageous. This child was triple bagged and thrown away like garbage while her mother was out dancing. And do you know the last person this child saw before this child met death? This child saw her own mother. There is nothing worse than a mother killing a child, and yes, she is deserving of the death penalty.
And what about Andrea Yates, who drowned 5 of her children?
If the jury says so.
But you like her because she was religious, as opposed to this woman who went to the disco.
I'm not talking about Andrea Yates. I'm talking about the woman who killed a child because she wanted to go out and bump and grind, and the day after her child was, as she admits, drowned. She's in bed with her boyfriend the next day. She is disgusting.
How many times have you covered child abuse cases where the child was tortured, where the child was starved, where the child was ill-clothed, where the child was sexually abused in a serial nature?
In jail
you do. Indeed you do, but you don't send them to death row.
This was a
case.
The jury will decide that.
Why by definition is it not abusive if you kill your child?